Rythmia Life Advancement Center in, I don't know if it's clicking in here, Steph. Yeah. Hey guys, it's Gerry coming from Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Good morning. I got a couple of interesting things to talk to you about today. This is coronavirus update number 6 from Rythmia. And I'm just going to be talking about some things I learned through plant medicine journeys. Tell you a little bit about Rythmia if this is your first time. And please, if you know anybody who would benefit from this, please, I'm really asking you to share. Facebook is cracking down or they just keep changing the rules all the time about how they do things. So to stay ahead of that, please share this. I really want this one to be shared. A little bit about Rythmia. Rythmia is a life advancement center that uses sacred plant medicines combined with metaphysical teachings in a very focused environment, in a very focused program. What makes us unique? About 952 out of every 1,000 people who come say that they got a particular type of life-changing miracle during their stay. And that's electronically recorded, self-reported data. It's unprecedented. What does that mean in the real world? Well, on TripAdvisor, they made us the number one resort, the number one customer-rated resort of any type in the world, because this thing happens here. And what happens is a soul merger. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later today. First, about the virus. From the beginning, I used these two numbers. I used a 17% infection rate and about a 0.3% death rate, mortality rate. And that means that 3 out of every 1,000 people who get this virus will perish. Now, that doesn't make an allowance for multiple morbidities, people that have had coexisting morbidities at the same time. So the true mortality rate is much, 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 much less than that. And that is just the truth. This is just absolute math. And I believe over the next 3 to 5 months, you're going to come to find that my numbers are pretty accurate. Then when it's all done, I'm going to tell you how I got to them. But next observation from me, this coronavirus is going to be over before you know it. Things will be back to normal before you know it. And there will be a large population of people that will look back on these days like today and say, God, I wish those days were back. I wish I could roll around my house in my PJs and eat a bonbon and have a cup of coffee and listen to the birds sing. You're going to be dying for these days to get back. So I'm going to tell you something like from a movie. I said, savor the flavor. Savor the flavor, because this is passing through. And whatever you do, don't get through the other side of this and look back and say, you know what? I had every opportunity to do my homework. I had every opportunity to improve my life. I had every opportunity to get to the point of things where I could change things, but I didn't do it. Please don't do that. Don't waste these days. And if you are in the habit of wasting them, you're wasting them because you don't understand that the end is near. But I'm telling you, the end is near. Please press share, and you'll be helping me out a great deal and helping Rythmia. Why ayahuasca? Why the coronavirus? Well, they do the same thing. What do I mean they do the same thing? Used properly, ayahuasca will mimic the death experience. Used properly, the coronavirus pandemic will mimic the death experience. What do I mean by that? Well, in an ayahuasca journey, you generally get to a place where you leave your body and your spirit passes on. And then in that transition, you really recognize the things that were most important to you on earth, which almost always is one thing. It's almost always your relationships. Almost always. So what is coming to surface with the coronavirus? Well, what's coming to surface is really simple. It's mimicking the same thing. It's showing you what life would be like after life. and you get an opportunity to really, really, really look at and take a stock of what's important to you. And this is what it's going to come down to: my relationships with other people. And the people who are going to benefit from this. So a lot of times in life, events happen, and 80-20 rule. 20% of the people will benefit from it. 80% of the people will move on and change nothing. Please be in the 20%. How can you be in the 20%? Write down a list of those things that are important to you and use it when this is over. Write down a list of those things that are important to you and use it when this is over. If you don't do that, you just wasted a bunch of time. You just wasted a bunch of time. And the 80-20 rule, for some reason, is always with us. It's always with us. So be in the 20%. Now, I talk about my journeys sometimes. I try not to, because sometimes if you start talking about an ayahuasca experience or an iboga experience or a kana experience, and people have not done it, they don't really know what you're talking about. A lot of times it's like explaining the color purple to someone who has been blind since birth, right? But I'm going to do my best on this. So I've had 273 of these journeys, and each one is recorded and journaled. And a lot of these things keep coming up in different journeys with different medicines. So what's one of them that I think we can all benefit from? One of them is what I call the balance sheet journey. And what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you, I was taken to a place by the mother, which was like a hall of records, but it was within me. And believe this or not, this sounds crazy, but everything you've done since the day you were born has been recorded by you in a place in you that has the most accurate recall that you can ever imagine. I mean, I've seen videos of me from me when I was 2 years old, and they're lifelike and real. All of this has been recorded. And in the death process, we get a chance to review all that we have done. We get a chance to review all that we have done. And this usually lends itself to a period of retching. And what is retching? Retching is where remorse and regret meet your awareness all at one time. So you have an awareness of all these things you did. Nobody is doing this to you. You do it to yourself. And you go through this period of regret and remorse. And if you ever watch someone retch, and those of you that have done enough plant medicine probably got to a place where you watched someone retch, or if you had a real near-death experience, you've probably got to a place where you watched someone retch. I can promise you, of all the things that have ever occurred to you in your life, you want this period of retching to be the shortest it can possibly be. Because at the end of the retching, you forgive yourself for all the mistakes that you've made. But please, I know that this sounds like a Christian, something that's ingrained by Christianity, but there's a lot more to it than this. The Christians got this from somewhere. Somebody died and was brought back to life. If you think near-death experiences only happen in our century, you're completely wrong. This has been going on as long as humans have had life. And they bring back stories from that death. And one of those stories is the accountability tale. In Christianity, they say that God, the old white God with the white hair, is up there and he puts you in front of this thing and you do a life review. There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to it. It's us reviewing our own lives. And this is a heavy-duty conversation, right? But it is us reviewing our own lives. And I, after having seen someone retch, want to have that as the shortest period that I can possibly have. What does that equate, and how does it equate to all of us? It comes down to this. There is a balance sheet out there. There's a balance sheet out there. It's actually in here. It's in us. And in that, it records where we harmed people, where we helped people, where we were conscious, where we were awake, where we were caring, where we showed and have given love, and where we have given hate, and where we've done things that hurt other humans. So we want to be really cognizant of this. What is the good news in this? The good news is there is a balance sheet. That's the good news. Because that's the thing that keeps us. You see, there's a part of all of us that knows that's true. And that keeps us from killing each other and doing all kinds of crazy things, or keeps most of us from doing that. What is the beautiful part about it? The beautiful part is if you're alive today, you have the opportunity to balance those books. Sounds crazy. It sounds fundamentally Christian, but it's not. It's truth. So if you're alive today, you have the opportunity to balance those books. Now, here's where this gets interesting. In the balancing of the books, and I don't care if you do it out of fear of retching, it's a great start. But in balancing those books, we find out that doing these things to other people, to help people, to be a beneficial presence on the planet, a beneficial presence in our work, a beneficial presence in our family, a beneficial presence in our community, a beneficial presence on the world. When we do these things, we find out that they are fun. And by fun, I mean something much different than what someone thinks of fun. Some people think that pleasure seeking is fun. And it can be, in very small amounts, it can be. But usually what is fun is something that is fulfillment-based, satisfaction-based, and sustainable. So in our quest to balance the books, we find out that this is a very fulfilling way to live our lives. And that a lot of what we've been told about commercialism, purchasing things, new cars and shit like that isn't even true. We find true joy in and I'm not talking about bliss. Bliss is like the height of the orgasm. That's bliss to me. I'm talking about real contentment and real fulfillment that's sustainable. And we find that in this quest to balance the books. So now let's just talk about this a little bit more because this all comes down to how can I have a more beautiful experience of this life. That's all this comes down to. And in balancing these books, we find out that the joy, and joy is really the wrong word, but the fulfillment and contentment comes from this particular thing, this thing of helping each other, being a beneficial presence on the planet. My good friend and brother, Michael Bernard Beckwith, talks about this all the time, and he's much more eloquent at it than I. But it's absolutely, positively the truth. It's in giving that we receive. A lot of this shit from the Bible is absolutely spot on. So, I want to talk about something else. So in this balancing the books, truth comes in. And I want to talk about truth because I want to talk about our lives post this event, post coronavirus. So what becomes super, super important in our life is how clear we are about the truth of ourselves and the truth of what's going on around us. So I want to back into that. Everything matters. Every single thing that you do, because it's being recorded, every single thing matters. So the decisions we make have to be truth-based decisions. I see a lot of spiritual people out there that are just saying, oh, just follow your heart. And most of us don't even know what following our heart even means, because you can't get to your heart through a foggy lens or a dirty lens. You cannot get there. So what people think is their heart sometimes is their desire, which is a much lower thing. It's a much lower thing. So people are walking around. I speak to 60-year-old men and women here that say, listen, Gerry, I followed my heart my whole life and it never worked. People that come here before they go through this thing. And what does that mean? They followed their heart their whole life and it's never worked. They were listening to this part of their intuition that was giving them wrong information. How does that even work? Here's why. Think of it as a gun. In the barrel of the gun, the bullet's going to go through that hole of that barrel. The sights are what you point something at. So if your sights are pointed not where the bullet's going, you're going to constantly look at the sights and make a decision, and the decision's going to be wrong. Why? The truth is that you're not yet to truth. Once you're in truth and you can discern between your groin, your heart, your head, your gut, which is a fear-based thing, when you can discern from them, you can triangulate these things to get clear and good choices. You can triangulate these things to get clear and good choices, right? If you're listening to something from a part of you that's unhealed, and a lot of us have unhealed hearts, and you think it's your heart, which usually it's not. It's the sense of what you believe your heart should feel like. You're going to constantly do the wrong things. And then what you're doing, it's cognitive dissonance, because you're listening to these spiritual thought leaders who are saying, follow your heart and you'll have bliss. And your mind is telling you, your heart is telling you to do that. Your heart wants bliss, but your mind's saying, don't do that because we've done it our whole lives and it doesn't work. And what does that do? It usually causes you craziness. There's dissonance there. There's energetic disagreement within yourself. So how does this relate to Rythmia? What is it about Rythmia that fixes that thing? I'm gonna explain to you. And I want to talk about our bad decisions in a second. But with Rythmia, what happens is we have a program that is based on plant medicine that walks you through the steps of remerging with your soul. That walks you through the steps of emerging with your soul. And once your soul is merged, you can't help but make great decisions. You're making great decisions if you're listening to it. So here's the thing with this. We talked about the masculine and the feminine. Both have to be engaged in order to make this decision. Because the decisions that we make, although heart-centered, are going to conflict with our fear sense, because they're so heart-centered, they're so true. And I'll talk about that in a second. So if we've made some bad choices and we continually make the same bad choice, I want to talk about that for people that aren't here and you have not been here. I'm going to say, please get here, because your choices of that repetitive choice that you make is going to end when something in you flips. The choice that you continue to make is going to end when something in you flips. So let's talk about it. I know guys and I know women that do the same thing all the time when they're dating. As a matter of fact, they get the exact same person all the time wearing different clothes. And then they come to me and they say, Gerry, I finally understand it. I'm a bad picker. I'm going to tell you categorically, you're wrong. That which you are picking is from a breach within you. And that breach, that result is not going to change until the breach is fixed. So, I gotta tell you, every person who touches you is there for a reason and is by vibrational design. Every person you meet, and listen, I get a beautiful opportunity to meet the most beautiful people, so I'm very, very, very gracious and lucky in that way. But every person you meet is there by vibrational design. There's something in you vibration that's attracting that same vibration into you. And until you get the lesson, so kicking out Harry in order to get Dave into your life, if Dave is just a Harry with a different hat, and you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Some people do it in business, they do it in this, they do it in that. You keep doing the same thing, and they come to me and they say, I finally get it, I'm a bad picker. It's not true. There's something in you that's doing that, and the person who shows up, I'm going to tell you something. You don't have to do a thing different. Once that shift is made in you, once that realization or that aha occurs, and it's never that I'm a bad picker, once that happens, then somebody different shows up. These are the lessons of life. So I'm going to tell you, people say to me, oh, well, Gerry, I'm in a terrible relationship and this guy is bad. and I say, listen, are you getting beat up? And they say, no. I say, okay, keep him until you realize what it is in you that caused him to be there. Or get rid of him, but don't get anybody else until you realize what was in you that caused him to be there. If it's your boss, and she's this way and you constantly wind up with bosses this way, keep that job until you realize, and it's never that you're a bad picker. So this gets back to intuition. People who have it together do get in those positions here and there, but it's very rare because the way that the vibrations work. And when they do, they had 30 years of great relationships, and somebody comes in, they sense it, they go against themselves, and then they immediately bounce them out. That's a whole different thing. And that happens 1 out of 1,000 times. Generally speaking, that person or that situation or that family argument, people say, well, what if my beef is with my family? What if I keep getting in this same family argument? What can I do about it? The most amazing shit of this is that the moment you change, the very moment that you change, that argument is gone. 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 So the whole nature, the dynamic of your family changes with you. So what is this getting to? What is this with my journey on ayahuasca and the balance sheet and how all this is interrelated? At the end of the day, she showed me that it's only me, that there is no such thing as outside circumstance, that it is always, 100% of the time, only me. So if we're going to use this coronavirus, and coronavirus really helps us because it shows us, number one, what life is like without touching relationships, without being able to be in someone's presence, right? Because that is a death experience, because that's going to happen to us, to ourselves, right? Tells us what's important, but also it should be pointing us directly back to truth, directly back to truth, directly back to reality. Last week I talked about the folks that are conspiracy theorists. So who does the best in life? And when I say who does the best, I mean this. Who actually helps people the most? Generally, people that are finding success in life. They tend to. Who are those people? Those are people who assess the truth and realize that they have to take that as fact for now and adapt their life to it. It's not people that realize the truth and complain about it or realize there's some other truth that's not true. It's people who take a look at it, assess it, and say, these are the conditions precedent. How can I do the best within this structure? That's it. Those are the people, those are the people who are most truthful with themselves. So I really, really want to say, take this opportunity, this golden, beautiful opportunity, and get an opportunity to be truthful with yourself. Value, and so what did I learn in those things? I valued each and every relationship. I stopped looking at people as I'm going to keep this one and get rid of this one. I would look at them and say, I'm keeping everybody. What is each one of them here to teach me? And not like it's some game of lessons. What is each one here to show me so that I can further evolve my soul, but improve the contentment of my earth life? Because I want to improve the contentment of my earth life. So in other words, if you're a martyr, you're being a martyr for the wrong reasons, right? What I believe martyrs retch about in the afterlife, what I believe they retch about, is not taking advantage of life. This is a gift. So here's the upshot. This is a gift. It's a joy to be alive. You have to see every relationship as almost sacred. So don't send someone packing until you understand why they're there in the first place. And if you can live this way and value your life, I want to tell you something else. It's never going to be better than it is right now. You might have more money one day, you might have less money one day, you might have more success one day or less success one day. You might have more family members someday or less, but it's never going to get better than it is right now. Right in this second, right here, right now. It will never, ever, ever be better. So take that into account and say, how the fuck can it not be better? I'm stuck in this house with this person and da-da-da-da-da. Because this, when you're doing that, you're bringing the future and the past in instead of just right now. It will never be better than it is right now. Take a minute and feel that and know that that's like the truth, and be thankful and gracious for that. We're alive. We are not the 3 out of 1,000 that died. We are alive. And to make the most of each and every moment. Love what you got because it's all you got. You will never have more than this. And as bad as you perceive your situation to be, I swear to you, a lot of us are sitting here and thinking, holy shit, we're going to have business problems, or we're going to have work problems, or this sucks because being unemployed, I make more money than I do when I'm employed. Whatever the problem is, I have a husband that won't shut up, or whatever these problems are, there's at least 90% of the people that are living in the world would trade problems with you for in a minute. In a minute. So be happy with what you have. This is it. And then make the most of what you have. And you can't make the most of what you have until you land back in truth. You cannot make the most of what you have until you land back in truth. So let's make a deal this week that as a family, as a community, as a group, that we really spend time trying to get to the truth. We really make a list of those things that are important to us so that when this is over, we can go back and look at that list. And we do our best to examine the relationships with the people that are in our lives and see what's in it. Why are they here? And if you do that, you'll have a really productive week. And savor the flavor of this aloneness, because I'm going to tell you, in a matter of months, it's going to be business as usual. And what I mean by that is that the kids are going to need to be picked up. The dog is going to need to be fed. You're going to have to run and do the grocery shopping, do this, do that, social things. You're going to miss this whole thing. Do not miss this. And if you do or if you don't, I want to see you at Rythmia. When this thing is done, there are going to be so many people begging for answers that are real. And I'm going to tell you, we have those answers and they are real. And when I say we, please don't think that I mean me, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. There are thought leaders of which I am not one. I'm a cheerleader for a plant. A plant that makes you see the truth. That's it. So listen, let's have a wonderful week, and please do me a favor and press share. It costs you nothing. Just press share. Hey, Zinlin. Hey, Aisha. I'm seeing some. Hey, Jen. Hey, Meg. I love you guys. Thank you for this wonderful week, and I will see you next week. By the way, on my fat boy diet, I'm going to tell you, I had lost a couple pounds. I gained a couple pounds back, but I'm giving you my word. I'm going to be 183 pounds before this is over. And I mean before this is over, before Costa Rica opens its airports. So I'm in it. Join me in this. Let's not get too chubby so that we can't get out of this, so that once the gates open, we're not afraid to walk out of our houses. Let's do it together. I love you guys. Let's have a beautiful, wonderful week. God bless you. God keep you. God hold you. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.